narrated by Alex Hunter. They always say trust is the foundation of love. But no one tells you what happens when that foundation starts to crack, quietly, like a hairline fracture you don't notice until the building collapses. Sophie used to say I was paranoid. That I saw shadows where there were none. Maybe she was right. Or maybe I've just learned to read the signs better than most. Tonight, she said she was working late. Again. Don't wait up, love, she whispered, brushing her lips over my cheek with the same softness she used the night we first met. But her eyes darted just a little too fast toward her phone when it buzzed, and that was enough. I followed her. Not close. Not recklessly. I've done this before. The city blurred past me as I tracked her cab through the sleet-smeared windshield. People on the sidewalk moved like ghosts under flickering streetlights. Then she stopped. A boutique hotel, tucked between a shuttered jazz club and a boarded-up cafe. The kind of place where secrets go to breathe. A red neon sign buzzed overhead, Elysian. Poetic. Hellish. She stepped out. Wrapped tight in that gray wool coat I bought her last Christmas. The one she said made her feel safe. Then came the man. Dressed like someone who knew how to be unnoticed, dark coat, sharp jawline, confident gait. They didn't touch. Not quite. But they moved in tandem. Familiar. I didn't confront them. That's what they'd expect. No, I waited. Engine idling. Watching. Recording. The digital eye of my phone fixed on them like a second conscience. This wasn't rage, not yet. This was evidence. Upstairs, one window glowed faint gold. Room 407. I parked and sat across the street, staring at that number like it owed me an answer. And then, I began to speak. Hunter, Alex. 34 years old. Suspected, emotional infidelity, possibly deeper. Surveillance initiated at 2146 outside Hotel Elysian. Target accompanied by unknown male. Mission, confirm betrayal. I clicked the recorder off. Old habits. I used to play detective as a kid, voiceovers and trench coats, mystery novels in my backpack. Now the mystery was my own life. The question is never just are they cheating? It's what else are they hiding? I lit a cigarette I didn't intend to finish and watched the window. Light movement. Curtains drawn. My jaw clenched. I wanted to rush in. I wanted to burn the place down. But I'm not that man. Not yet. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence. If she's lying, I'll find out, and when I do, I won't need to raise my voice to destroy her. Because the worst kind of betrayal doesn't scream. It whispers. And tonight, I was done listening to her silence. The next morning, I returned to the hotel, not as a man in pursuit, but as a guest. Single room, I told the desk clerk, a young woman with eyes glazed from routine. 2 nights. Quiet floor, if possible. Room 409. 2 doors down from Sophie's 407. Coincidence? I didn't believe in those anymore. The place was small, almost too quiet, with faded Victorian wallpaper and long corridors that seemed to fold in on themselves. The elevator creaked like a confession with every floor. Perfect. Places like this weren't built for transparency, they were designed for hiding. I spent the first hour just listening. Pressed to the wall, I could make out muffled footsteps. The occasional clink of glass. Voices, too. 1 male, 1 female. Too faint to decipher. I considered moving closer. Then I noticed the vent. Old school, metal, slightly rusted, perfect for sound to travel. I unscrewed the grate with my house key and leaned in. And there it was. A laugh. Low. Male. Confident. Hers followed. Softer. Rehearsed. I turned on the recorder and held it near the opening. Nothing too clear, just fragments, names blurred, phrases half swallowed. He doesn't know. The files, dangerous if they. Then a laugh again. From her. And not the nervous kind. That was the moment the crack widened. I spent the rest of the day pacing the hotel like a restless ghost. At the bar, I ordered a whiskey I didn't drink and watched everyone. Especially the man in the navy coat who exited the elevator and slipped something, a keycard? A flash drive? Into his pocket before vanishing through the back door marked, staff only. I noted the time. 4:47 p.m. Back in my room, I played back the recording. Mostly static and breath, but the words still echoed beneath it like bones under floorboards. He doesn't know. But I would. Later that night, I found myself by the dumpster behind the hotel. The smell was unforgiving, old takeout, cigarette ash, something metallic. I sifted through it with a handkerchief pulled tight over my nose. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe this was madness. Then I saw it. A torn photograph. 3 pieces. I gathered them like a puzzle. First piece, Sophie. Clear as day, smiling. Second, a man, not facing the camera, but familiar. Third, my own face. Faded in the background. A photo I didn't remember ever taking. My fingers froze. Had we all been in the same place once? Had I forgotten, or had I been excluded from the memory deliberately? Back in my room, I stared at the pieces until my vision blurred. I needed more answers. Proof. Or maybe just something to quiet the spinning in my chest. Before bed, I opened my notebook and jotted down the day's findings. Voice recording, partial, unclear. Suspected drop-off at 4:47 p.m., staff hallway. Photograph fragments, implications, shared past? Then I drew a circle around one phrase, not about love, something bigger. I lay down with the vent still open, recorder still running. Sophie's laugh echoed faintly again through the wall, lighter this time. Almost innocent. But I knew better now. This wasn't about a fling. This wasn't about betrayal of the heart. Something was unfolding, something sharp, intricate, and far more dangerous than I'd imagined. And I had just begun to peel back the wallpaper. The next day began with a flicker. Not light, memory. I was shaving in the fogged bathroom mirror when the image came to me, a hallway, dimly lit. Sophie standing beside a man. Not laughing. Not touching. Just watching something, or someone, off frame. But the frame was my eyes. Had it happened? Or had I imagined it so often that it etched itself into memory? I turned off the tap, razor still pressed to my jaw, and looked at my reflection. Blood trickled from a careless cut. I'd lost time. Again. I wrapped a towel around my face, steadying my breath. This wasn't just about Sophie anymore. Something was being hidden from me. And it wasn't just by her. Midday, I wandered the hotel's halls, this time with purpose. Room 407 was empty. The staff confirmed it had been vacated early that morning. No checkout. Just gone. But she hadn't come home. I knew that. I checked the apartment. Her car was still at the train station. Her work calendar showed a client offsite for 3 more days. She had gone dark. I returned to the bar, now in daylight, and watched. Faces came and went. Mostly suits. A few couples. One man stood out, not because he was conspicuous, but because he was too polished. He wore his anonymity like a tailored suit. He sipped his drink slowly, scanning the room without moving his head. His eyes caught mine once, and only once. But I saw recognition there. Later, I watched him slip into the staff hallway again. This time, I followed. The hallway curved left, past the laundry chute and a series of old, locked doors. At the far end was a service exit. He was gone. But just as I turned back, I saw it, a barely noticeable panel in the wall. A fingerprint smudge. A faint click as I pressed. A narrow door opened. Beyond it, stairs. The passage led to the basement. Bare bulbs flickered overhead like warning signs. At the end of a long corridor sat a metal door slightly ajar. Inside, boxes, records, files, tagged photos. Old surveillance equipment. A buzzing CRT monitor blinked on. Room 407. Live feed. Except the room was still empty. The feed wasn't real-time. It was a loop. That meant someone wanted it to appear unoccupied. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Stop watching. I dropped the phone. There were layers here, too many. And suddenly, Sophie's presence at the hotel wasn't about escape or romance. It was about operation. Deception. Covert movements behind a personal betrayal. I stepped closer to the boxes. In one, I found shredded documents, hastily ripped but partially legible. One fragment, LX-59 Transfer Protocol, Lawrence Craig to SL. SL. Sophie Lawrence. She wasn't cheating. She was laundering. But for who? That's when I heard it, a voice behind me. You shouldn't be here. He was tall. Athletic. Early 40s, maybe. A precise, calculating presence. The kind you notice even when he doesn't speak. Daniel Craig, he said, almost mockingly. Yes, that's my real name. Don't laugh, I've heard it all. I didn't move. What is this place? I asked. Nothing you understand. And if you're smart, you'll forget it. She's involved, I said. Sophie. She was. Now she's cleaning up your mess. My mess? What does that mean? Daniel walked closer, eyes unreadable. It means that sometimes, obsession is useful, until it starts looking in the wrong direction. What the hell are you talking about? He reached into his coat and pulled something out, a lighter. Silver. Familiar. Engraved initials, AH. You left this in the apartment, he said, tossing it at my feet. You shouldn't have come back. I never brought this with me. Exactly. He turned and walked out. I stared at the lighter like it might explode. What was he implying? That I'd been somewhere I didn't remember? That I'd left things behind I couldn't recall? I stumbled out of the basement, lungs burning. The city outside felt louder, brighter, hostile. I walked for hours without direction, ending up at a diner off 6th Street, the kind with greasy coffee and cracked vinyl booths. I sat in the back and pulled out my recorder, playing the ventilation capture from the night before. Static. Then, a voice. My voice. Find the truth, no matter what. Even if it means burning it all down. I never said that out loud. Not to anyone. Not even to myself. The timestamp, 2:13 a.m. That's when I'd been asleep. Wasn't I? I didn't sleep that night. I listened to the rest of the tape, over and over, hearing words I didn't remember saying. Notes I don't remember writing in my own notebook. Phrases too perfectly phrased, like a script rehearsed by someone who knew me better than I knew myself. Had I been manipulated? Or was this just the unraveling? In the silence, I circled one line in my journal again and again. What if the lie was never hers? I didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. The curtains stayed drawn, the lights dimmed. I existed in a low hum of static and suspicion, flicking between old recordings, scribbled notes, and the fragments of a photograph I couldn't stop rearranging on the table. 3 people. One forgotten moment. And the strange, inescapable feeling that I was the one who didn't belong in the photo. Each night, I replayed the tape. My voice, speaking truths I didn't remember confessing. Phrases too polished. Too calm. It wasn't the content that disturbed me. It was the tone. Flat. Unfeeling. Like someone reading lines they'd memorized. That voice wasn't mine. Not really. And yet, it was. On the 3rd day, I visited a contact from years back, Evan, a private tech investigator I used to drink with during quieter times. We met at a storage unit he converted into a workshop cluttered with screens, drones, listening equipment, and machines that hummed like secrets. I handed him the voice recording, the fragments of shredded documents, and a printed still from the hotel security feed. I need to know if this is real, I said. Evan squinted at me. Real in what way? Untampered. Authentic. He nodded slowly, slid the SD card into a reader, and got to work. I watched him from behind as data populated across 3 monitors. He layered the waveform against another sample I'd sent him, an old voicemail to Sophie, something casual from before all this began. Minutes passed. He leaned back. Same voice, he said. Same mouth movements, same vocal fry? But what? He tapped the screen. There's a weird delay. Like someone reconstructed your voice using multiple clips. Not AI. This is more analog. Pieced together manually. From real speech. Like someone was building a story. He turned and looked at me. You're being framed, man. My breath caught. Framed by who? I asked. He looked away. Maybe the better question is, framed for what? That night, I returned home with the lighter Daniel gave me. I held it up under a lamp. It was clean, polished, too pristine for something supposedly left behind. But when I flicked the lid, a folded note slipped out from beneath the flint wheel. I told you to stop. Now it's too late. Room 219. Bring the photograph. No signature. Just smudged handwriting I swore I'd seen before. Possibly my own. Room 219. That wasn't the boutique hotel. It was a different place entirely. A corporate chain. Clean, sterile. A hotel for conferences and government travel, the kind you forget even while you're in it. I booked the room directly below, 119. I didn't go upstairs immediately. Instead, I waited in the parking lot, eyes fixed on the windows. At 11:06 p.m., the light in 219 blinked on. And then, her silhouette. Sophie. Not in distress. Not hiding. She stood calmly, phone in hand, as if waiting. For me? I went up just after midnight. Photograph pieces in my jacket. Recorder in my pocket. A small folding knife, just in case. Room 219. I knocked. She opened the door before the second tap. Her face was calm. Serene. But her eyes carried none of the shock one might expect from a woman facing the man who'd been stalking her across the city. Hello, Alex, she said. No anger. No fear. Just disappointment. You wanted the truth, she said. But you only ever wanted your version of it. I stepped inside. The room was lit softly. A laptop open on the desk. Papers scattered across the bed. I recognized some of them, copies of my notes. Recordings. Transcripts. You've been documenting me? I asked. She laughed, a dry, tired sound. No. You documented yourself. I just kept the pieces you forgot. She handed me something. A second photograph. Same setting as the torn one. Same people. But this time, I was clearly in the foreground. Holding the camera. Smiling. Daniel beside me. Sophie between us. I staggered back. This isn't real, I muttered. But it was. The The timestamp in the corner matched the day I claimed I was in Denver for a client meeting. I checked my planner. It said, out of town. No location. Sophie watched me fall apart. You were involved from the beginning, Alex. You just don't remember. You chose not to. For what? Why would I do that? She gestured to the laptop. I clicked play. My own voice again, this time clear, direct, unbroken. We burn the old files. Move everything through Lawrence. I'll distance myself. If it all falls apart, I play the idiot. The obsessed boyfriend. It'll sell. My knees gave out. This wasn't a story of betrayal. It was a story of self-erasure. I'd built the cover story myself. Planted the doubts. Let the obsession consume me, because it was safer than knowing who I really was. And now? I wasn't the victim. I was the architect. The air in the hotel room thickened, like something unsaid pressing down on us both. I stared at the recording still playing on Sophie's laptop, my voice, calm, assured, laying out the very scheme I'd spent weeks unraveling. It was like watching a ghost perform a crime in my name, a stranger who wore my skin and borrowed my tone. You knew I'd come looking, I said, slowly. You planned this. No, Sophie replied, gently. We planned this. Together. You just don't remember. She picked up a folder from the desk and opened it to reveal dozens of pages, psychiatric evaluations, therapist notes, medical charts with my name on them. Diagnoses. Suppressed trauma. Dissociative episodes. Patterns of manipulation and buried memory. I blinked. I never saw these. She nodded. Because you asked me to keep them from you. You wanted to live in the fiction you built, the paranoid lover, the betrayed man. It was easier than facing what you'd done. I didn't do anything, I snapped. Sophie walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Night bled across the city in streaks of neon and rain. Down below, a car idled. 2 silhouettes inside. We burned documents. You recorded the fallback story, she said. Then you buried it so deep inside your guilt, it turned into delusion. You're lying. She looked back at me. If I am, then why did you bring the knife? I froze. Her eyes dropped to my jacket pocket. The weight suddenly felt heavier. I hadn't told her about the knife. Hadn't shown it. But she knew. Because we'd prepared for this moment together. Because she remembered. And I didn't. I sank into the edge of the bed, knees trembling. I felt fractured, like the photograph I carried, torn down the middle, no longer sure which side of the story I belonged to. You were supposed to disappear, Alex, she said, voice soft. To protect us both. I looked up at her. Why didn't I? She didn't answer. But her expression said everything. Because a part of me didn't want to let go. Because even monsters want to believe they're heroes in someone's story. A knock echoed at the door. She didn't move. I stood. Glanced once more at the laptop, at the timeline of my own undoing. Then at her, calm, composed, calculating even in kindness. I don't remember what I did, I said. Does it matter anymore? She asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the door. The handle felt cold. Heavy. Final. I opened it. No one was there. Just an empty hallway and a blinking red light above the doorframe. A camera. Recording. Watching me. I stepped back inside. My pulse surged. My voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. How long have I been the one under surveillance? Sophie closed the laptop with a quiet click. Since the beginning. Epilogue. 2 days later, I checked out of the hotel under a different name. The lighter was gone. The photograph too. The tape? I destroyed it. Back in my apartment, I sat alone in the dark. No Sophie. No Daniel. No answers. Just silence. And the faint red blink of a camera I hadn't noticed before.